And welcome back to the first of a new line of Naruto What Ifs. I've actually got, after this one's done, I'm going to go one more Naruto What If, and then I'm actually going to be going with one that I've been waiting on to do for a while, because there's a lot of, it's one of the variant What Ifs that's the same topic, but with different ways you could go with the topic. We'll get to that when we get to it. Anyway, this is what if Naruto was adopted, or excuse me, what if the third Hokage adopted Naruto? Excuse me. Ugh. And this comes to us from Drake Garvin, X0 Eventless 4T, Itachi Uchiha, VHFM plus Ultraman, Heji, Big H small, excuse me, capital H, lowercase h, 5, let's see here, Nicholas Allen, The Orange Flash, Naruto Uzumaki, Akira Adamson, E4's E4izen, Ryoshe, 6th Hokage Uchiha Obito, Lost Grace, Owen Anderson, Daniel Smith, Brandon Whitman, Fused Varish, and Mission Palmer. Nope, sorry, that's a different thing. Anyway, so yeah. What if the third adopted Naruto? So honestly, this would still take place at the beginning of the series. What would be the events that led to, because we really don't know the reason why no one took Naruto. Like, nobody took him in. I mean, we know that it was we know he had the Nine Tails Fox on it. It was more than likely had to do with something along the lines of no one should have the possible access to the Nine Tails. But this is the third Hokage we're talking about. And granted, he had lost his wife at that point, and he was on the older side. He didn't want to be raising kids, per se. But look, this is a scene from the anime that I used in the thumbnail. He clearly still had time to spend with Naruto at certain points, and, at least keep him company. He got a stipend and stuff like that. He got a monthly allowance to pay for his apartment, all that. Well, anyway, so, what would lead to the third adoption? Well, I think it just would be a matter of, he looks at Naruto, sees this little kid who needs someone there to take care of him, and, he felt that maybe he owes this to the fourth. He owes it to Minato. He owes it to Kushina. He owes it to them. This is their son. This is now the protector. Minato wanted his son to be seen as a hero. He's going to make sure it's seen like a hero. So, in the council, when they're all, making the decision of what happens to the kid, he basically says, I will, I'm trying to get my third Hokage voice down. I will raise Naruto. And there's wait, Lord Hokage, you can't be serious about raising him. And you're Hokage. I will do it. You're right. I am the Hokage, and ultimately my word is law. And they was well, we got a say too. It's saying this too. And I imagine the third would actually get quite loud with them and be like, you do not get. It's normally yes, but this is a child's life. You do not get a say in this. No. I doubt any of you. Why? What do you plan? Have the child live in an orphanage and never know what he is? To have his parents basically his parents' legacy completely disrespected? No, he's not gonna be. That's not gonna happen to him. So ultimately, there might be some push. There's definitely gonna be some pushback, but especially maybe from Danzo. But ultimately, he is going to do what he can take Naruto. He's going to do what he needs to do and raise the boy. So really, what happens here is we would actually more than likely cut to young Naruto at this point, because we'd have to understand what the household of the Sarutobi because he'd be Naruto Uzumaki Sarutobi at this point. I'm trying to remember what his actual heroes. Hold on, I know how to spell his name. I believe it's Hiruzen. Third Hokage. Hokage. His name was Hiruzen. I can just never know how to pronounce it. I believe it's Hiruzen, Hiruzen, or Hirozen or something like that. Anyway, what is the household that Sarutobi like? Well, obviously because he's the Hokage, he can't literally be raising him day in and day out. But I have to imagine the Sarutobis were in fact a larger clan than like just a couple people, because we know of 3 different Sarutobis. We know of Konohamaru, we know of Ozma, and we know of technically we know of 4, his wife also. And we know that Konohamaru's parents are not Ozma. Ozma's not his dad; he was his uncle. So that means Ozma has a brother, and that actually means yeah. Think about that for a second. He's the 3rd Hokage's grandson, which means the Hokage had at least 2 sons. Or at least he had 2 children, maybe a daughter, because they can be uncles can be to sisters as well. But so he had 2 children at least, and then his mother or father had to have married someone into maybe either out of the clan or into clan. The thing about the Sarutobi clan is there's nothing. I mean, they have some unique jutsu to the clan, but there's no bloodline trait to them, so they don't have to. They don't have to be as blue blood, let's say, as other clans do. So we've met 4 different Sarutobi, and we know of at least 2 others. And then if you want to count Ozma's daughter with Kurenai, that's technically a Sarutobi of Sarutobi blood. So I have to assume there's maybe a couple dozen. No, they're probably not a huge clan, but they probably have a presence. There's probably a couple dozen of them at best. Whereas with the Hyuga, there are probably well over dozens of Hyuga, maybe even hundreds of Hyugas. There are dozens, if not hundreds, of Uchiha at the time too. Whereas the Nara clan, there's maybe I imagine they're in the same standing as like the Akamichis, the Yamanakas, the Aburame. They're in the same standing as them. So there's a fair amount. So when Sarutobi's not around, Naruto is getting looked after by other clansmen. But Sarutobi definitely is still looking after him. He plays the grandfather role. And I think what's be important here is that Sarutobi when Naruto can basically comprehend these things, like lets him know, it's like, I adopted you, but I see you as my own. It's like, but no, and basically what I mean is he doesn't see Sarutobi as his father. Because Sarutobi is like Jiraiya is one thing. Jiraiya was in his 50s. Sarutobi, we know, was in his actually, I got his age right here. It was in his late 60s, 68 to 69. He was going in 70. He was well past being like a father figure, but a grandfather figure who was raising him, plus the help of the other clansmen. I'm sure Ozma shows up now and then too. Helps out young Naruto. Naruto is very much aware of this. Now, I don't think you get the demon hunt. I don't think you get people harassing Naruto, because it's the same stigma that Konohamaru gets. Only this time it works to Naruto's benefit. That, oh no, that's the Hokage. That's the Hokage's adopted son. Yeah. Now that being said, they still probably will subtly reject him. They'll give him the glares. They'll tell kids not to play with him if possible. I don't think it's as effective here as it was in the original, because again, Naruto does at least have people he can go home to. He still can talk to like Ozma. They have a lot of fun. He would definitely be training Naruto in Winjutsu. We'll get to that in a little bit. But yeah, there's not much to really go off of in terms of the villagers, being cruel to him, because again, he's pretty much got Hokage protection. And I mean, he's not causing trouble too. I think that's another thing we need to point out, is that he's not a troublemaker per se. I think he's still mischievous. I think that's just in Naruto's nature to be kind of, kind of a Loki-esque figure, kind of like to cause mischief. But he's not painting the Hokage monument. He's not pantsing people. He's not creating the sexy jutsu or anything like that. But he just, likes to mess around every now and then. So more than likely you get Naruto in a very reasonable household. I mean, he's, again, a little bit of a troublemaker, but he's actually got people who care about him. The third is very much a grandfather to him. Ozma is like an uncle to him. So, because he's kind of like honestly, Azuma would probably actually be more like a Nissan. He'd be a brother to him because that is the Hokage is his dad. And I think Naruto being there does give Azuma a reason to hang around a bit more. Granted, it's not till later in the part one, just because we know he was part of the 12 Ninja Guard for a while, and I think he was still part of the 12 Ninja Guard when the Nine Tails attacked, so it would take a little while for him to come back, and we know he was a little at odds with his dad too. But more to the point, where does Naruto stand overall, like in ability wise? Because I do think the Sarutobi would want Naruto to, um, he wants Naruto to be prepared. So he gets him started early on with the chakra training exercises because he knows he's going to have a large chakra reserve and difficulty controlling it. So he gets the tree walking down early. Like by the time by the time the Uchiha massacre happens, Naruto already has tree walking and water walking down. I do think if he still can't do a normal clone, I think Sarutobi realizes the problem and shows him the shadow clone instead. And sure enough, he can do the shadow clones no problem. But I think he also gets them on elemental training. And this is where Azuma really comes into play. Because Azuma is a wind user. Now, we learn in the 4th Shinobi War arc, Sarutobi could use all 5 elements. Was that his, now what was his affinity? That's the question. Given the fact that we, in the original, like, in the only fight in the original series we got, we did get him using fire and earth more than anything else. And given the fact it's a lane of fire, I would imagine fire was still probably his predominant element, with earth maybe being his second. Because those were the 2 elements he went with first in the fight against the first and the second. He never used water, he never used lightning, and never used wind. But ultimately, he could use all 5 of them. So even though he can definitely teach with some wind jutsu or wind element training for Naruto, it's better he gets it from an actual master. And I think Azuma would definitely be more than willing to, help Naruto out with this. The fact that he's a primary wind user would actually put a big smile on Azuma's face because, they're so rare in Konoha. Unfortunately, the Uchiha massacre would happen. Naruto, sees Sasuke's bum and, tries to actually talk to him. But I think Sasuke rejects him because, as he did originally, because, there's no real relationship, I think, here with Naruto. As there was in the last one I did. But Naruto's like, well, all right, fine. It's like, but Naruto can see the sadness on his face, and for some reason, he can relate to it to some degree. Definitely. Not the fact that he's been, like, mistreated per se, like he was in the original, but more in the sense that because of the animosity that a lot of the villagers still give him, even with the third's protection, by name, or by adoption, I should say, he does understand some of that. So he makes it a goal to kind of challenge Sasuke in class, like when they're sparring and stuff like that. Now, you do, I think, still get Naruto standing up for Hinata. I think that still happens. Don't get me wrong. There are probably scenarios where Naruto doesn't come across that scene. But here, let's be fair, too. That if they didn't come across Hinata getting bullied in that scene, it would most likely still happen in our time because they would still bully her a different time. So that I still think that happens. So, and she's probably one of the people who's legitimately a friend of his. And again, she'll probably develop crush. But I do also think, by the way, because he's got more interaction with the kids, he does also help Sakura out. Like he hanging around maybe when kids are making fun of his forehead. And before Ino could step in, Naruto actually steps out and say, "Hey, who do you think you are making fun of her? There's nothing wrong with her forehead." It's like, what? It's so big. It's like, so what? So what? If she were, so what? Your eyes, he's probably makes something like, your eyes look kind of cross-eyed, and I have no one making fun of you. It's like, well, what did you say, Pug? You heard me. It's like, you want to make fun of someone, you better what would be you want to basically, and he's a kid, so he's not going to use this terminology. You want to belittle someone, you better be prepared to get belittled back. More is like, you want to make fun of someone, you better be prepared to be made fun of yourself, jerk. It's like, you want to go, you little prince? Like, come on. And Naruto and him and Naruto about to square up. And it's like, Naruto, what are you doing? One of the Naruto's is like, oh crap, wait, he's that kid. Like, yeah, get out of there. And Naruto, this is one of those times Naruto does use his namesake to his advantage a little bit. And it's like, yeah, it's like, you better. I was like, Naruto, what were you doing? They were making fun of her. That's not cool. No one should make fun of anyone just because of the way they look. It's like, well, yes, but you shouldn't start fights. Like, yo, come on, I could have taken him. I know you could have taken him, but that's not the point. You want to be Hokage, just like your grandfather, right? It's like, yeah, that's absolutely. We can't just start fights with people. It's like, oh, but, yeah, and then Naruto actually says something. Yeah, but if they're picking on someone or if they're being mean to someone, I can't just not do something. To which they actually do kind of pause, like, well, that's fair, and I told them to stop, and they came at me first, and it's like, and Sakura and Ino actually chimes and say, that's true. I mean, he did tell them to stop, and they kind of started kind of went towards him, and he just stood his ground. It's like, well, I mean, you didn't throw a punch this time, because I can imagine Naruto actually doesn't. I've never thought Naruto liked bullies to begin with. Like, I feel like Naruto as a character does not like a bully. And like he might, I could see Sarutobi Naruto going around and like whenever he sees a bully stepping up and like doing something. It's like, yeah, I know you don't like it. It's like, I don't like bullies. And it's like, yeah, I know you don't like bullies. It's like, well, you didn't knock anyone out this time, so it's all good. It's like, wait, knock anyone? Like, oh yeah, Naruto's kind of maybe laid some people out before Naruto just got cheeky. Well, I mean, they were kind of being jerks. Anyway, are you okay? I didn't get your name. And Sakura's actually got a bit of a blush on her face. Like, I'm Sakura. And for what it's worth, I like your forehead. I like your forehead. It really suits you. And she's actually she's got a blush on her face. Like, it's like, you like my forehead? To which Ino's even looking like, ooh, it's like, stop it, Ino. Stop it, Ino. And this actually causes a very different parallel in the story, where Sakura actually does like Naruto. Like, not necessarily saying straight out fangirling or crushing on Naruto. No, at least not right now. But she actually, because he was nice, he stood up for her. And I'm sure, like, when, kids are on the playground playing, they end up playing together and stuff like that. So along with Hinata, actually liking him and probably developing feelings, because she's much more reserved and shy. Again, if he gets a chance to play around with her, well, that almost came out wrong. If he gets a chance to play, on the playground, as kids do, I'm sure they interact. I'm sure he also interacts with Choji and Shikamaru. They were on they're some of the students he had at least a better relationship with. So unfortunately, Sasuke is still very hard to get through. But anyway, where I was more going with this was going into the academy, and mostly we'd be looking at, we're going to stop this right before the actual graduation exam, by the way. Going into the academy, so he, again, actually has a fair few friends. Him, Sasuke, Sakura, Hinata, and Ino actually are all very good friends. Now, Ino is more crushing on Sasuke, to which Sakura tries to, but again, let me rephrase this sentence, but having Naruto giving her positive reinforcement, similar to like he would do with Hinata as well. He encourages all of his friends, and the fact that he's just a good person. I think it does ultimately keep her more grounded and like, well, he's good. Sasuke is attractive, but I mean, he's not very nice. And in the classes, like especially in Sparse, it's Naruto who's really pressing Sasuke. And I actually think there would be he's basically trying to get through to Sasuke through basically a rivalry in class where they go toe to toe in like hand to hand combat and compete. Now Sasuke is probably still going to be the top student. I have no doubt about that, because unless Naruto is a genius, I don't see him being the most academically smart. I'm not saying he would flunk or be anywhere near as bad as he was, because I do believe that's the teachers sabotaging him to some degree. But that doesn't mean if he had the tools available, he'd be a genius. It's very obvious Naruto is not a genius type of He's not a Shikamaru or a Sakura. He's not a book smart shinobi. But what he is very intuitive and very adaptable. So I imagine he'd still be like second in the class or something like that. Or at least second or third. He'd be in the top three. But yeah, so this leads Naruto, to constantly be pushing Sasuke. They would actually probably be having basically kind of like a Kakashi and Guy situation where they would be having like a tally. I think even like the class would be like having tallies. Like, so who's ahead right now? I think Naruto's got 2 over on Sasuke. Then like the day's over, it's like, well, Sasuke's evened it out again. Then like Sasuke's got 2 over on or like a win over on Naruto. Naruto took the lead. I can see that, and they're basically pushing each other to excel. And Sasuke can actually see what Naruto's doing, and actually, while he doesn't say it a lot, actually appreciates someone actually paying attention to him like that. They're actually seeing him for more than just the Uchiha. In terms of where Naruto is skill-wise, though, we know he knows the Shadow Clone, and we know he knows his think words here. We know he knows his chakra control exercises. By the time we get to the graduation exam, I have no doubt at this point, because I'm sure that to get Naruto really prepared and prepped, they would have told him the secret of the Shadow Clone Juice, so that it can actually help with training. So he uses it that way. So he's already mastered his Winjutsu at this point. He's ready for combat. In terms of Winjutsu he knows, he's probably got at least 4 different techniques, technically. Gale Palm, because that's the standard one. Great Breakthrough, that's another one. Now, the other 2 are... I'll eventually give him the Tornado Fist Explosion, the technique I stole from Yu Yu Hakusho, which I think makes a fantastic technique in the world of Naruto. But it's too soon for that, I feel. But what I do think he got as a graduation present is the garrote knives, is a pair of garrote knives just like Azuma has. And Azuma helped train him in the style. Naruto, surprisingly, I think would take to it because it's a very close range style, but he's using his Winjutsu to augment the blade so he can get them really long. And I think he learns probably like a slashing technique as well, where he basically fires a slash of air. His taijutsu would also be vastly improved as well. And ultimately, this leads us to... And now, would he learn anything else at this point? I mean, the question is, would Sarutobi want to give him the monkey summoning contract? I don't think so, believe it or not. While we don't know if... We know it was probably a family contract, because we know the little bit of Boruto I know. We know Konohamaru also has the summoning contract for the apes. For the monkeys. But... I don't think so. A lot of that, I think, because the fighting style of the apes, I don't think works for Naruto. At least in this version. Because Naruto's not trained with Bojutsu. We know Enma can turn into a staff, and, Sarutobi was a master of the staff. I'm certain there were other apes that were masters of the staff as well, or staff, maybe not turning into staffs, but could use similar techniques. And I don't think it fits Naruto, at least in this version. But Naruto's still very up in terms of his Winjutsu. Naruto skill-wise is probably in a Chunin level of power. So we end this off with the exams coming, and ultimately Naruto passes his exam. Everyone passes their exams. Now, Naruto basically, is picked up by the third himself. As they go to Ichiraku Ramen to celebrate. They have a good laugh, and then the alarms get rung. Basically, later on in the evening at the Sarutobi estate, where Mizuki had gone ahead and tried to steal the scroll himself, and that is where we end part 1. So we actually, I think, covered a lot in part. I'm gauging right now how long this one's going to be. I'm gonna estimate, because on average my Naruto ones will go anywhere from like 15 to 20 videos. The really long ones can go into like the 20 like 5. I think the longest one I ever did was actually like 30. So yeah, although I think, let me rephrase that, the 31 I believe was the My Hero one. That was actually in the 40s, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, so I digress. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. I'm thinking maybe 15 to 20. We'll see. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Hit that bell if you want to be notified. As always, you want us to review something, put the comments below. Let us know. I'll do a review of it at some point. Ideas for who would win, Star Wars, Super Magic, whatever, anything you do on the channel. Put that in the comments below as well. I'll get that at some point. I'll be back on tomorrow, because it's on Wednesday. So Thursday, with a Pokemon video. So keep your eyes up for that. Until then, see you next time. And hit that bell if you want us to be notified.